All right. Good evening, everyone. It looks like we are live for our very first daily wrap-up. So I want to welcome you to the daily wrap-up and Q&A for Bama Bug Fest on the web for today, July 7th. And today's bug theme is what makes a bug a bug. We've been collecting all of your questions and comments about our content throughout the day, and we'll be asking our panel of experts to help us answer as many as we can. These daily wrap-ups happen every day that we promote or that we have content for the Bama Bug Fest, and they happen live at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are joined this evening by Sadie Zabawa, who's the Youth Services Librarian at the Weaver Bolden branch for the Tuscaloosa Public Library. Hey, Sadie.
Hey.
And we're joined by Dr. John Friel, the Director of the Alabama Museum of Natural History. You might recognize them. You might recognize them from programs we've had throughout the day. And they've been kind enough to agree to come back this evening for a quick Q&A session. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you for helping with the event today. How did it all go today?
It was so fun.
Yeah, it really was.
Good. I'm glad. So yeah, if you were able to log into any of the videos that we had today, both of these faces, actually all three of these faces, I was there too. All three of these faces are probably pretty familiar to you. But so throughout the day, we've been looking at the comment section of all of the platforms, which there are many platforms that we are posting all this content to, and have been collecting some of the questions that you have. So please know that this is an opportunity for you to, if you've got questions throughout the day, post them in the comments, and we will check them every day and put them here at the daily wrap up. But we are also taking comments live and questions live. So as you're watching this daily wrap up, if you have any questions about what we're talking about, please feel free to put them in the comments, and we will post them up so our experts can talk about them and answer them for us. But so I think let's just get started. What do you guys think? Yeah. So the first couple of questions I have are for Sadie. I loved that book. That book was great. The illustrations. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Some bugs. I'm also very impressed that you were able to say the author's name, because I had trouble with it. I'm sorry, author. I had difficulty with that the last one. But I am, it was such a beautiful, let me see if I can get you some more. There you go. So we can see your book a little bit better. Yeah. So if you that video of Sadie reading this book is live or is up rather in lots of different places. You can find out on bamabugfest.org where you can view all of those. So you can see that video again. But what brought you to this book, Sadie? What made you decide to choose this book for Bama Bug Fest to get us started?
Yeah, I was definitely drawn to the illustrations. They're really beautiful and eye-popping. There aren't a lot of words. The illustrations speak for themselves. And if you look closely, we've got this ladybug friend here, and it is in every single picture on every page throughout the book. So if you go and look through it again, you will see our ladybug friend. And also at the end, we've got all this great back matter that names all the bugs that are in the book. So you can go back through and see their official names. So if you want to learn more about these bugs, you can look them up.
You know what? I bet we're going to be covering some of those bugs, or at least the broader grouping of those bugs during Bug Fest. Yeah, so this is perfect. It was the perfect start off to our Bama Bug Fest. So I think you're right. I mean, the illustrations are beautiful. There's this page in there that's the ant pit. Well, it's an ant picnic. The picnic wasn't necessarily made for the ants, but the ants definitely took advantage of location. There it is. Look at that. That is a summer picnic I would like to have in my life. Those ants knew what was up and they got the right things. So, so if people are wanting to check out and try to find the Ladybug Friend all over the pages, how can they get to this book? What's a good way for them to be able to find this book?
It is at the library. Our main branch is open right now, Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 4. And you can go right in and grab this book off the shelf, or you can schedule a curbside appointment. And we will get it off the shelf for you and give it to you so that you never even have to leave your car and have a contactless appointment to get your bug books.
That's pretty cool. And I know that this one is a great one, and I know that the library is just full of other bug and insect related books that people can find. Am I right? Is there a lot there?
The bug books are crawling off the shelf. There are so many of them. And we have them in our picture book section. We have them in our nonfiction section for kids and adults. There's plenty of bug books. You can look in the library. You can ask a librarian. They can show you where they are. And we also have some links to our bug books in our handy resource guide if you want to look there for some more books about insects.
Excellent. Yes, and that resource guide, once again, can be found at our website, bamabugfest.org. The resource guide was lovingly put together by a friend of ours and one of the Bama Bug Fest event committee members named Lance, who works at the UA libraries at the Rogers Library, and it is wonderful. So he's added a lot of great links to other books that you can check out, as well as a bunch of other links that are on there too. So thank you so much for sharing. Oh, wait, actually, you know what? I have a surprise for you, Sadie.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, you built a bug. I love it.
And
oh my
you
goodness.
named it Ingrid.
Yeah, it's Ingrid the insect. And this is Sadie put together this wonderful Build-A-Bug workshop, and you can find the Build-A-Bug workshop on the bamabugfest.org. But it's this fully customizable insect creation lab workshop experience. And that is what happened. Ingrid happened from all of that.
She's beautiful.
She maybe only has 4 legs because I didn't count right, but she is supposed to have 6 legs, but it's my bug, so she has 4 legs. I'm also just going to say that some of 2 of the legs are hidden underneath the wings. That's acceptable, right? I think. But yeah, can you, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, so I'm sorry, but can you talk a little bit about like putting together that Build-A-Bug workshop? I mean, it seems kind of neat.
Yes. So I looked at actual pictures of actual bug parts and got some ideas from them for some of the cool stuff I wanted to include in the workshop. And I was amazed at all the cool antenna out there. So many bugs have amazing antenna. So
yes, they do.
Wild with your Build-A-Bug workshop and create anything that you want to. It doesn't actually have to work because it is your own bug imagination. Yeah.
I also will say that in that video, you make an excellent joke at the end, which I greatly appreciate, where you talk about it being stuck to the page, but it's so realistic that it could just fly from the page. It was perfect. It was wonderful. Everyone has to watch that video now just to get that little joke at the end. Well, and the rest of it too, obviously, but you got to stick around to the end so you can get that great joke. But yeah, so I'm so glad. Thank you so much for making this. It's going to go on a notebook or a binder that I will have with me forever. I'm really excited about it. Okay. So let's go ahead and so after that was at the, I think yours was the 2:00 one, wasn't it, Sadie?
Yep.
So then we moved to our 4:00 one where Dr. Friel and I talked about, Dr. Friel talked about, I did not talk about any of them, but Dr. Friel talked about what makes a bug a bug. What is a bug? And he had this great presentation that showed just how large a grouping and how diverse a grouping arthropods are, and that's what our general like big definition of bug is going to be. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's, bug in a very technical term, it only applies to a really specific group of insects. But I think if you're not an entomologist or a scientist and you're just an average person, when someone says bug, you sometimes apply that to spiders, crustaceans, all kinds of arthropods. So, this is a public event. We want to embrace inclusiveness. So we basically want to recognize all arthropods because they all share common features. And, we all have personal relationships with them. A lot of them are, in fact, insects, but we have relationship with crustaceans, with spiders, with other arachnids, some fossil groups. So the idea is they're all connected somehow. And the easiest term for all of them, arthropods, is kind of a technical term, kind of a little bit of a tongue twister, but everyone can say bugs. They're used all the time when people refer to bugs. but we're going to claim them, at least for our festival. When we say bugs, we basically mean arthropods.
That's great. And, you know, we actually have a bug-themed question that came into the comments. Can I show you real quick? So someone said that they found a toe pincher type of bug on campus and asked if they were natural here, if they were native to Alabama. Do you know anything about those?
I'm not sure exactly what a toe pincher. I've heard of a toe biter, and those are actually aquatic bugs that I mentioned. True bugs, one of the characteristics I mentioned was that they have these piercing, sucking mouth parts. And there are these rather large aquatic predatory bugs that people call toe biters. So I'm not sure if that's what he's referring to by toe pincher. The other possibility might be earwigs. Ingrid, you know, when I saw your Build-A-Bug, Ingrid the insect, those little pincers on her posterior are very typical of a group of insects we call earwigs. So that's the other possibility. So without seeing a picture, I'm not sure exactly what type of bug, but the reality is there are lots of bugs on campus. You know, I'm always documenting the different insects we find, and I wouldn't be surprised. There are probably thousands of different insects that are on the UA campus, even more across the Tuscaloosa area. So when you start looking into it, they're everywhere, and there's a lot of them and a lot of different kinds.
Bugs everywhere.
Yeah.
So in the presentation that you gave, I think it was fascinating, but one of the ones that I think I wanted to ask you and revisit a little bit was the difference between a centipede and a millipede. And you talked a little bit about those. And I think it's one that, you know, we see those often. They're definitely here in Alabama, but some use the words interchangeably, and they're different.
Yeah, they're different, but they're related. So I understand why people get them confused, because compared to other arthropods, they're rather long and leggy. That's something they have in common. But if you look at the details in the legs, for example, millipedes, the name implies they have thousands of legs, which is a little bit of an exaggeration. Some of them have 100 or more. I don't think there's any that actually get up to 4 digits in limbs, but they have generally more legs than centipedes. And then centipedes means 100 legs. So again, kind of over exaggerating again, they don't have, most of them don't have anywhere near that many legs, but they have a lot of legs, you know, compared to most insects having 6, spiders having 8. You know, when you have several dozen, 50 more, a lot of legs. And both millipedes and centipedes can have those. But the difference is that millipedes have, if you look at the individual segments, so both millipedes and centipedes, if you look at them along their bodies, they're elongate, but there's these repeating segments in between the front end and the back end. And on a millipede, there are 2 pairs of legs per segment. And on a centipede, there's just a single one. So that's, if you zoom in, sometimes it's hard to count the legs. I mean, you have to kind of pick them up. So what I always tell people is they're very different. They're kind of on different ends of the kind of continuum of what they feed on. So millipedes are kind of slow and steady. They eat plant material, decaying matter, so they don't have to chase down prey items. So they're lots of legs, but they move slow. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have the centipedes, which are like, you know, the big predators. They're super fast. Some of them run really fast, and they have big pincers on their head, on the front end, that they actually can grab prey with and inject venom into. So they're super aggressive, and they're really fast. So if you see something in your house and you're not sure if it's a millipede or centipede, you don't have to stop and count legs. You probably couldn't do it because they're moving. But just how quickly it's moving. And I think if I showed you a millipede, if you had a race between a millipede and a centipede, it's no contest. It's like the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise will be the millipede.
Slow and steady won the race, though.
Yeah, it does. And they both have, you know, in some ways, actually, millipedes have better defenses. I mentioned in my talk that they have a lot of chemical defenses. So while they don't have venom, they produce some nasty chemicals if you try to eat them. So that's the one thing. Some of them have like a cyanide type toxin, which smells like kind of apples or almonds. Others like will stain your skin. We have some really large ones. I think if anyone that spent time outside in Alabama, we have some species of millipedes here that get several inches long, up to over 6 inches long. So they're these giant North American millipedes. And, you won't mistake them for anything else. They're slow moving. And we also have some big centipedes. Our biggest centipedes get about 3 inches long, but there are much bigger ones that occur out in the Southwest that get almost a foot long.
Oh my goodness. I'm glad that we're where we are then. That's good to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love that. That's great. And I think I like how the way I see it is centipede or millipede is just a bunch of, it's like way too many socks to have to deal with. Okay, that wasn't as good of a joke as I wanted it to be. I had it different in my head. It didn't come out the same. Anyway, so one more thing, and Sadie, this was the craziest thing that he said, but he was saying that, I think it's really neat, but horseshoe crabs are actually in the arachnid grouping. Right? I know. I agree. So they're in the arachnid grouping, which I think is really interesting. Do you have any more to talk or say about that a little bit more, John?
Yeah, just generally, I think
surprising.
we've known for a long time that horseshoe crabs, which, we often refer to as living fossils, because at least the modern ones we have, they're 4 living species, are, to most people, if you look at them, they haven't changed much over hundreds of millions of years. So the earliest fossils of horseshoe crabs look virtually identical to modern ones. So they're one of these things which are often cited as a classic case of a living fossil, because at least morphologically, they haven't evolved much over hundreds of millions of years. And they almost look like trilobites, kind of an extinct group I mentioned. So they have a very distinctive, they're marine. Think about arachnids. Arachnids are spiders and scorpions and their relatives, kind of really different looking. Most of them are terrestrial. They seem to be very different. But we always know they've had these kind of similar mouth parts, these chelicerae, which the larger group Chelicera is named for. But more recent studies, we live in a time now where people are doing more use of DNA sequence data, sometimes using entire genomes, much larger data sets. And it really has added support. And in the past couple of years, there have been a couple of studies in which people have looked at large numbers of genes and found very strong evidence that what we know as horseshoe crabs are in fact nested not only within Chelicerae, which we suspected, but actually within arachnids, and are much more closely related to the arachnids, which are the largest group of Chelicerae. So the morphology is a little misleading, and that happens sometimes. And there are other examples I could give you, both in and outside of insects, where there's been some surprises. Another one is recently, similar studies have shown that termites. People know what termites are. People know what cockroaches are. They're closely related. And actually, cockroaches are just kind of antisocial termites. And there actually is one small group of cockroaches, some of which we actually have in Alabama, that eat wood, that aren't as destructive as termites. So there's all these really neat discoveries we're finding. And sometimes, the morphology has been right all along, but sometimes it's tricked us. As we start using new techniques, more genetic data, we're finding some surprises in the big family tree for arthropods.
That's so cool. I had no idea. I never would have put cockroaches and termites at the same family gathering. No. And apparently it's just a big spread of maybe like 2x4s and branches, and at least for some of them. So we were able to get a couple more questions in on the live comments. The one that talked about the toe pincher said that it was like the giant water bug. So I think it's the one that you were first mentioning.
That's what we're thinking of. Yep. And they're really neat. When you see one, they're kind of scary looking. They get 3 or 4 inches long, really big ones. They've got these big legs, and they normally feed on fishes and amphibians and other insects. But if you we're dipping netting or seining and maybe pick one up and weren't aware of it, they have this long needle-like proboscis that they stick into you. And while they don't have any venom, it's quite painful. It's like driving like a needle into your hand. So people have the experience sometimes where they're wading around in some aquatic vegetation and something bites their toe, hence the name toe biter.
I don't know about you guys, and even you, Sadie, but I can't even imagine, just imagining an insect in general feeding on a fish is something that is not computing in my head at the moment. Just even that. And I've heard of toe biters before, but still I know that it happens, but it just
there's aquatic beetles that are also predatory. There's lots of dragonfly nymphs. Those are really cool. That's the one thing, you get really amazed by the biology. So if you've ever, I would tell people, go Google YouTube, look for a video of a fly nymph feeding. And they have these amazing protrusible jaws that look straight out of Aliens, that they can shoot out this kind of modified lip mouth structure and grasp elusive prey at them like a small fish or a tadpole. So, kind of nightmare fuel, but I'm fascinated by it.
And, we're going to have one day next Tuesday, I believe, is our water bugs day. So we're having a whole day, or a whole section rather, dedicated to aquatic macroinvertebrates, and dragonfly nymphs are going to feature. So hang out for that one. We have another one that's asking, one of my neighbors has 2 bug zappers in their yard. Do these things have any redeeming features?
I guess redeeming is kind of a subjective. I guess if you're trying to kill bugs, I guess they do have redeeming. I mean, they're very non-selective. One of the interesting things of which we'll actually touch on in one of our videos later on about blacklighting for bugs is, and most people have the observation that insects are drawn to light. And what they're really drawn to is not that it's the ultraviolet part of the visible or the ultraviolet spectrum of light. So it's kind of not really in our visible field. And for whatever reason, it's thought insects maybe use this to navigate. There is UV radiation that reflects off the moon. So often the moon is sometimes used as kind of a navigation signal for nocturnal insects. But if you put out an artificial light, particularly one that puts out a lot of UV, it will attract insects. And the way those things work is they attract the bugs with the light. The bugs get close enough, and often they come in contact with some kind of metallic screen, which then zaps them to death. So, all that popping sound, you might get a mosquito here and there, but in most cases they're killing other insects, which are not going to harm you at all. So they're more for kind of show and for people like, I don't know, that think they're killing mosquitoes. It's hard to selectively kill mosquitoes, so I don't generally recommend them. I like attracting bugs to observe them. I'm not crazy about mosquitoes, but they're a small price to pay for observing a lot of other cool bugs.
Yeah.
You can make your own bug attractor without the zapper, which is what we're going to talk about in one of our little streams later in the week.
I would say at Expedition, the only time we ever use bug zappers is for horseflies, because horseflies find us delicious. And sometimes it can be difficult to be delicious all the time. Someone asked this really great question, I think. I've never seen pill bugs around anymore. Are pill bugs or roly-polies related to millipedes?
Okay. I don't know if you saw my earlier talk. So what we call pill bugs and roly-polies are actually terrestrial isopods. So they are in the group Crustacea. They're actually terrestrial crustaceans. And they're incredibly common. Most of the ones we see here are actually introduced species. We get the roly-polies we see here are actually from Europe, and they've been established in the U.S. and occur throughout the U.S. We have some ones that don't roll up, but that are called sow bugs. And along the coast, there are some things they call sea slaters, which are related to these. But they're basically terrestrial crustaceans. Allie, one more time, the question was about, were they related to millipedes? So a really good question is, and I didn't point on this, most people when they think of millipedes think of something elongate, but maybe what you're getting at is we actually have, and there are within millipedes, there are millipedes that actually mimic roly-polies. And they're short, stubby little millipedes. In other parts of the world, they're quite big. There are some in Madagascar that are like the size of golf balls. We actually have them here in Alabama, and they're really tiny. We actually have 2 genera and I think 3 species. And they're on my wish list. I haven't found them yet. I bet we have them all throughout the state. People have told me they found them in Birmingham, up in Huntsville. They live in kind of rotten vegetation, rotten logs. And the problem is you have to look for them. They look like small roly-polies. So there are, in fact, they're not related, but we do have millipedes that kind of mimic roly-polies. And again, it's a defensive mechanism. There's actually some beetles that can actually roll up as well. And I'll have to find an image somewhere, but there are some striking examples of convergent evolution where millipedes, beetles, and millipedes have all devolved this kind of armadillo-like defense. There's even some armadillos that roll up. And what they do is they just curl up. They use their armor and they stick their soft bits inside to protect themselves. There's actually a spider. Maybe I'll add this to my spider presentation, called a woodlouse hunter. Again, it's an introduced species that specifically hunts and feeds on roly-polies and their relatives. And it has it has enormous fangs. It looks super scary when people see it, but they're not going to hurt you. They're just looking for millipedes, but they've had an arms race with roly-polies, and now have developed these massive fangs that they can actually get through the roly-polies armor. So the neat thing about bugs is, because they've been around so long, bugs have been preying on other bugs. There's some amazing cat and mouse games they developed, defenses, counter defenses. So if you're really getting to bugs, there's just so much fascinating biology that goes along with them. A great question.
That's a great. The same person that said that they wanted to see it said that if I find one, she'll bring it to you.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I mean, I find things in my backyard, and that's literally, there are a few bugs I really want to see. I haven't seen the dismalites, the glowing
I want to
gnat
see
larvae.
those.
We have those in Alabama, but the pill millipedes, I know they're here based on scientific literature, and I've talked to one person who's actually said he's found them. But part of me is I just have to spend the time out in the woods flipping over logs. Maybe you'll find some. So I think what you have to do is collect a lot of roly-polies, particularly small ones, and look at them carefully under a microscope. Because when you look under the microscope, look at details like the number of legs per segment, you'll suddenly realize there's only one pair of legs per segment in true roly-polies, where there'll be two in the millipedes.
Sadie, have you ever seen the dismalites? Have you ever done that Dismal's Canyon thing?
I have not.
I really want to see those too. Yeah, I have heard really great things. I've never done that either. So maybe one day we can all do a Bama Bug Fest trip out to the Dismals.
Do a museum
Dismal
trip.
Canyon. Yeah, exactly. All right. So I think we've answered all of our questions that we have today. If anything else pops up, we'll make sure to answer them as quickly as possible, send them to the experts and get the answers from them. I do want to talk about what's happening on our next day of Bama Bug Fest, which is Thursday. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Hang on. There it is. Oh, wait, no, that's not it. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, everybody. What's happening? Okay, so let me see. Is my screen showing? I am not doing well at this. Okay, so it's live. It's live. There it is. There it is. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay, so Thursday is our next day, Thursday, July 9th. In 2 more days, you only have to wait 2 more days for more bug and bug stuff. We will have content again at 10, 2, 4, and 7, just like on every day. We will start with Learn to Draw Spider-Man with DC Comics artist Sarah Lever, which we're really excited about. She is an artist who has drawn for DC Comics, and she will host or lead an art lesson to teach you how to draw Spider-Man. I know, DC, Marvel, we're getting everybody in there. This is an art lesson that's suitable for all experience levels. So if you're just starting out, or if you started out a little while ago and you've gotten some skill, all of those art levels are artistic levels are able to watch this and have fun and draw Spider-Man. Now, once you finish your Spider-Man drawing, we would love it if you would be willing to share it online with the hashtag Bama Bug Fest, so that we can kind of see what you guys have done with the art contest, or with the Spider-Man drawings. And then our next one is the first of 2 others that'll be like this, but it's called A Comic Book Expert, a Scientist, and Spider-Man Walked into a Live Stream. So we will have a comic book expert, the manager and the owner of the comic strip in Tuscaloosa will be here. An arachnologist, Dr. Sebastian Echeverri, will be coming. And then Spider-Man will join us as well for a conversation about how spiders and comics come together, which I think is great. And then after that, you'll see Dr. Friel again doing 8-legged facts about spiders, and he'll have some really great interesting facts about spiders on that one. And directly following that will be Spiderly Speaking with our own Dr. Ruth, who will talk a little bit about how spiders make other spiders, and some really interesting facts about that whole process. And then at 7, again, will be our daily wrap-up, similar to today, where we'll be collecting questions and asking the experts questions and taking questions live. So This is Thursday, July 9th. We hope that you can join in for us. And again, remember, if you're not able to watch them while they are happening, you're always welcome to go back and watch them. They're archived on YouTube channels and the Facebook pages. And so please make sure to check those out. But I think, is there anything else that we need to, before I do my little thing, is there anything else anyone wants to leave? Any final parting thoughts?
Yeah, I think this was a good initial one. Like I said,
Great.
Send the questions in. We're more than happy. I love researching. I love being challenged. I mean, I'm not, I tell people I play a bug expert on live streams. I mean, my professional training is in fishes, but I've been fascinated with bugs, particularly since moving to Alabama. So it's been kind of me. I'm like a kid, and much like a lot of, I think almost all kids love bugs, and we kind of lose that enthusiasm as we get older. We get distracted by other things, and I think our society just kind of unfortunately squashes our interest in bugs. So I hopefully our activities will rekindle that fascination with it, because we really are, whether we want to admit it or not, our lives and our livelihoods are so interconnected with arthropods, and this is just a great opportunity to make that reconnection.
Excellent. Well, thank you all again for joining us for Bama Bug Fest on the web. Make sure to check us out on Thursday, July 9th for our Into the Spider-Verse Day. Content always appears at 10, 2, 4, and 7, and always on Central Standard Time. If you aren't able to join us for the live presentations at the times that they happen, you can always go back and watch them later through archived videos on our social media sites, YouTube channels, and with our handy resource guide, which you can find at bamabugfest.org. There you can also find a link to our art contest, which you can enter if you find any inspiration in all this buggy talk that we've been having and will be having over the next couple of weeks, and find some inspiration. You can enter in a piece of art that will be part of a contest that we have. We also will have a virtual exhibit that you are welcome to get a chance to peruse and get to see and learn a little bit more about insect photography done by some UA students, which is really exciting. And all of those are available at bamabugfest.org. As we want to UA museums, the Warner Transportation Museum, the Alabama Museum of Natural History, the Department of Research and Collections, UA's Rogers Library, and the Tuscaloosa Public Library for all of your work in organizing this event. And thank you to Sadie and John for being here today. We appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us for Bama Bug Fest. So thank you all, and I hope you have a good night, and we will see you all on Thursday.
Bye, folks.
Bye.